The brain is always given maybe a second number. The heart always comes first.
Yeah.
But people fail to understand that if the brain is working properly, it will take care of all your organs.
Right.
So brain has to be given first number.
Right.
I'm not saying that just because I'm a neurologist. Maybe it is a high time for the people to understand that brain is extremely important.
Why this brainstorming young has become a hot topic today?
I feel all neurological conditions should be discussed and should be talked about. And the stroke is one of the most common neurological disorder what we see, which really causes disability, what you call morbidity and mortality both.
Yes.
Unlike other neurological disorders where we don't see the morbidity and the mortality.
Right.
When it comes to a stroke in younger individuals, definitely we are talking about morbidity here. We are talking about mortality. We are talking about how the family members they're going to suffer if the young generations are getting affected. So it's a family burden. Finally, it will be a burden over the society, and some or the other way, the nation is also getting affected. So anything which happens acutely to any individual, acutely means abruptly. He was normal 5 minutes back. Immediately, if he is getting, for example, difficulty in speaking, or any hand lifting problem, hand grip weakness, or a leg weakness, that is considered as a stroke unless proven otherwise.
Okay.
That line has to be remembered by everybody in their normal clinical practice also, and as well as for the common layman person also, they have to understand anything which hits you acutely, it is stroke.
I am Dr. Ashok Hande. I am a neurosurgeon practicing in New Bombay since 1996. I specialize in a surgery for brain stroke. Yeah, good afternoon, Artik. Welcome you on this channel. And as you know, this channel was started by Brainline. And Brainline, which is a brainchild of Urva Medificras NGO, which was established by us in 2011. And the Brainline project is all about creating awareness about brain stroke in the society. What we are doing, society, for people who are creating awareness, and also we are creating awareness among the backers. You know, typically the medical structure in our country is like a pyramid. You know, at the base of the pyramid, you have all the general practitioners, Ayurvedic doctor, homeopathic doctors, and things like that. Unless and until you prepare those basic doctors in the pyramid, there's no point in creating awareness only in the society. So we are creating awareness both simultaneously among the general practitioners as well as in the PTA. And to create awareness among people, that we have started a podcast series, which you were a part of it when you did it last. So today's podcast is going to be a little different than we are going to talk mainly about brain stroke in young population, and which you know better because that incidence is rising very rapidly in the society, both in India as well as abroad. So I thought this is a hot topic to be discussed, and that's the reason I was choosing the topic. Very welcome on this podcast.
Thank you.
So I would like to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. Arti Kulkarni right now, she's practicing in Navi Mumbai, and she has got her own clinic called the Arogyam Super Specialty Clinic, which is in Tharge. She did her MBBS from NGM College, Navi Mumbai again, and she did her neurology from Narayan Institute 2018. But she has experience about 11 years in the medical field, and she was awarded a gold medal in 2013 for a contribution to the medical field. So we have a very exclusive guest today, and who has a large experience about treating a brain stroke. So I'm sure all the viewers will be happy to learn from her experience. So Arti, we have a tradition here that when we begin the podcast, we start with some quick fire round questions, and those questions will be asked in just yes or no. Like KBC, you will not have an option of 50-50 or phone a friend or something of that time. At the most, you can answer in one sentence, but essentially it is going to be yes or no.
Okay.
So shall we begin then?
Yes, fine.
Yeah? Okay. So first question, do you think brain stroke are on rise?
Yes.
Do you think brain stroke does not care about age, gender, religion or demography?
Yes, definitely.
Is it true that women are affected as well as men?
Yes.
Is it true that brain stroke affects only the old?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Is it true that younger generation seem more in emergency department with heart and brain related problems?
Yes.
Yes.
Nowadays, more. Yes.
Yes. What is the most common cause of such high prevalence among young people? Is
Lack
it
of exercise
lifestyle,
and lifestyle change.
lifestyle changes? And what is the youngest brain stroke patient you have treated in your career?
Maybe around 16 years old.
16 years old. Okay. Is brain stroke reversible?
Yes.
It is reversible. Is it reversible completely or partially?
Up to certain extent.
Or to certain extent? Does that depend upon the time when the patient reaches CA?
Yes. If the patients are reaching early, we can reverse the effect of brain stroke
Completely.
completely. If
Yeah.
they are getting late, they are reaching us late, then most probably the damage which is created by brain stroke, that we cannot reverse at 100%.
Okay. It could be permanent also.
Yes.
It could be permanent also. Can brain stroke and heart attack be prevented?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely yes.
Definitely. Yeah. And what are the requirements that if you want to tell people that you can prevent from getting brain or heart attack? One, as you said earlier, that major lifestyle modification. Yeah. So that's the main thing that we are talking about, because you know that most of these heart and brain strokes are related to the lifestyle problems. So if you can correct them at least partially, and a large number of brain stroke can be prevented. So that is done with the your quick fire round questions. Now we'll go to the main questions, and the main questions are going to be very basic kind of questions which a generally person can understand, and you have to talk to them rather than talking to me, because they have to understand this entire episode. What is brain stroke? How will you define the brain stroke?
Brain stroke means when there is a circulation of the brain gets interrupted, either because of the rupture of the blood vessel or because of the clot formation in the blood vessel. And due to that process, the brain cells are dying and the patient gets the problem, resulting to the obstruction of the blood flow. That is called brain stroke. So brain stroke, for example, if it is happening acutely and different parts of the brains are getting affected, according to that we get a symptoms. So anything which happens acutely to any individual, acutely means abruptly. He was normal 5 minutes back. Immediately, if he is getting, for example, difficulty in speaking or any hand lifting problem, hand grip weakness or a leg weakness, that is considered as a stroke unless proven otherwise.
Okay.
That line has to be remembered by everybody in their normal clinical practice also, and as well as for the common layman person also, they have to understand anything which hits you acutely, it is stroke unless proven otherwise.
Okay, fine. Now you get this paralysis of brain functions in brain tumors also, sometimes after migraine also, after epilepsy also, after infectious process also. Do you call them brain stroke?
They are what we can call them secondary attacks which are happening in the brain. But definitely it is important to distinguish them from the primary brain attack, which is happening purely because of the blood circulation problem. More earlier you differentiate and you treat, the recovery is better. Later you do the recovery, definitely it gets hampered.
Right. So stroke is primarily synonymous with the some problem in the blood supply.
Blood
that is
supply,
occurring.
yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by young strokes? Is there an age limit for that?
Yes, for the young stroke, the age limit is age below 45 years, we call young stroke.
Okay.
And definitely after 45, still it is falling into the category. But normally we say, previously we used to tell that age for stroke, getting stroke is more than 60.
Right.
But nowadays we are seeing strokes more common in the younger generation or younger population. And by definition, 45 years is the cut limit for calling that as young stroke. Yes.
And do you think the presentation of young stroke is different than the old strokes? Older people?
Maybe risk factors might be different, but the symptoms, a way they present with, most of the time the symptoms are similar, sir.
Okay, they are more similar.
Yes.
Okay, that really age doesn't decide about that,
Yes.
right? Okay. And you see, we started practicing doing surgery for the brain stroke in 1990. So, and we did a very large number of surgeries for the brain stroke. But during initial 10 to 20 years, wherever there is a brain hemorrhage, it was related to either aneurysm, AVMs. We never used to see hepatitis hemorrhages so often. But in this century, we started seeing these hemorrhages with happening very often, more often. And we are almost forgetting the spellings of annuals and avians because all that work is going to the interventional neuroradiologist, you know. So whatever cases that we are operating for the brain hemorrhage, they are almost certainly related to the hypertension. In fact, about a month ago, we had about 5 patients admitted in ICU. The youngest person was 23-year-old female and oldest was a 34-year-old male. All 5 had hemorrhage, you know, and that hemorrhage was the first presentation of a brain hemorrhage in such cases. So I'm talking about just one hospital in one ICU. I'm sure you must have seen many more such kind of things. So if I say that younger population getting affected with the brain stroke more and more than the old people, am I right or?
Yes,
Yeah?
you're right, sir.
You're right.
We are also off late, maybe last 6-7 years, we are seeing a lot of young patients coming to us with the stroke. Either it is hemorrhagic stroke or a ischemic stroke.
Yeah.
But most of the people are coming to us with the stroke, and the presentation is most of the time they're coming with the paralysis, difficulty in speaking, difficulty in understanding, confusion.
Yes.
But if you are not treating them properly, the damage is permanent.
Permanent.
So reaching to the hospital on time also matters.
Matters, yeah. And when the damage is permanent and you are in a formal stage of making a career or earning for the family, probably the entire family suffers then. And if he comes late with the damage permanent, it is irreversible. The patient cannot go back to his normal life, unlike what happens in heart attack patients. Okay. Have you seen sudden surge in the incidence of brain stroke post-COVID time?
Maybe answer for that would be definitely yes, because during COVID time also when I was practicing, I still remember those time also I was seeing around 30 to 40 patients daily during COVID pandemic. That time, a lot of patients used to come with post-COVID neurological complications. One of that complication was the post-COVID stroke.
Okay.
So either they used to present with hemorrhage, they used to get admitted, they used to be on the ventilator, or they used to come with the maybe the clotting in the blood vessel in form of ischemic stroke. We had seen post-stroke other complications also, means the patient had rest of the complication because of the COVID, like respiratory paralysis, infection, ARDS, and the stroke which is also going on in the background, and the recovery is getting delayed.
Correct.
In common population also we had seen post-vaccination, we have seen a lot of patients coming to us with the stroke.
Okay.
Immunological complications also we have seen during that time. Like we have seen post-COVID infection GBS or post-vaccination GBS, Guillain-Barre syndrome. Nowadays, off late, maybe post-COVID era, it's been 4 years, but the incidence is rising. But it is very difficult to tell it is because of the COVID which has gone and which is giving you the sequelae, or maybe it is a post-vaccination effect, or it is an environmental effect. Maybe we still have to do the study and the analysis about that.
But one thing is sure, after the COVID, the number has gone up.
Definitely.
Cause maybe whatever, but number definitely has gone up. Yeah. And another thing which I've noticed that about 10 to 15% strokes, hemorrhagic stroke, which I am seeing nowadays, they belong to age group below 40. Younger age group, yeah, and as compared to Western countries or European countries, I think developing countries like India, they're getting stroked at much earlier age than those people.
Or maybe there are a lot of risk factors which are contributing nowadays. I feel one of the most common risk factor in the cities, we are seeing a lot of patients. As you said, most of them they are having hypertension. The lifestyle definitely plays important role. What we call that as epigenetics, means the environmental changes which are happening in and around you. Lack of exercise, lack of proper diet, not sleeping adequately, lot of stress going on, traveling stress, stress going on at the working place, stress at home, the domestic environment, how it is. Along with that, the atmospheric changes in form of effect of the weather, effect of the pollution,
Right.
and the addictions again. Lot of nowadays younger generations are addicted to lot of in form of smoking, alcohol, taking drugs.
Right.
So lifestyle is definitely playing a role, and the environmental factors contributing to causing brain damage.
Yeah.
Whether it is in acute formulation or maybe it is a chronic, over a period of years we will see the manifestations.
But this disease lifestyle, is it not seen in the US? I mean, they have probably much more McDonald's and burger kind of a food, junk food.
It is definitely seen. Maybe the genetic pattern what we are talking about.
Okay.
That also plays important role. Maybe if you're saying why the India is the leading hub who are getting patients, those who are having diabetes and the blood pressure, is definitely the genetic pattern, the polymorphism, and at the same time the environmental changes. Everything is contributing for all these factors. So correcting everything at every level is important in order to prevent occurrence of the heart attack or a brain attack.
Correct. Of all the risk factors that I know for sure that hypertension, diabetes, obesity, we are actually leading in the world. May not be
So
first, but
we are
maybe
not
second.
we must be second or third.
Yeah. So that's not a good news, no? I mean, the day by day, I think we are moving up, like with economy. Because our economy is flourishing, people have money, people are buying luxury. And then with the luxury, a lot of things are coming in, you know?
Maybe with the luxury, the stress also comes in the
Yeah,
basket.
everything comes in, yeah. So we are getting a lot of things as a gift, free gift, you know. Why this brainstorming young has become a hot topic today, and everywhere it is being discussed, you know, in the literature, in the meetings, and everywhere. I mean, why it has become? It's only because the incidence is rising. That is a cause, or secondary economic burden on the family or the state or the government is rising. I mean, what is the cause to make this as a most relevantly discussed topic nowadays?
I feel all neurological conditions should be discussed and should be talked about. And the stroke is one of the most common neurological disorder what we see, which really causes disability, what you call morbidity and mortality both.
Yes.
Unlike other neurological disorders where we don't see the morbidity and the mortality.
Right.
When it comes to a stroke in younger individuals, definitely we are talking about morbidity here. We are talking about mortality. We are talking about how the family members they're going to suffer if the young generations are getting affected. So it's a family burden. Finally, it will be a burden over the society, and some or the other way, the nation is also getting affected. So overall, if you see all together, if you see the Indian economics, and if you see the India, if lot of younger patients are getting stroke, then definitely some or the other way it will definitely going to affect the revenue and the other economics and the statistics. Most importantly, a person who gets affected with the stroke, and if he is not seeking the treatment on time, and if the damage is permanent, at the personal level he will have disability, that will be a morbidity, one thing. Along with that, he will have issues, financial issues, job-related issues, that he will not be working fullest or the way he was working before.
Correct.
Career opportunities would be less. Looking at his career after that, the marriage, post-marriage, taking care of the family, everything will going to get affected. All these things will set depression in the family. The entire family will going to get affected.
Right.
Once family is affected and the family is not happy, they will not going to do the constructive work later on also.
Right.
Because everybody is suffering. We have seen a lot of families, the older patients are bedridden, the family members are taking care of them. But just imagine, the young person is bedridden and the parents have to look after their son who is bedridden. It's a big trauma for the family as well as for the parents, definitely.
Right.
And at the same time, patient is also going through the depression that he is young. This age, he should be going around doing a lot of things. Now he is bedridden at home. So, some or the other way, the individual, family, and the entire society is also getting affected. So, this topic definitely needs to be talked about, and it has to be understood at the every level, at the personal level, so that definitive measures can be taken and the patient can be treated as early as possible.
Yeah, very well said. What I'm asking you that if you get all the neurological conditions together, put in one basket, what percentage of your practice forms this stroke treatment?
See, if you ask a neurologist, number of patients, what you see, depending on that, around 50% of patients, what we see are migraine patients.
50%.
50%, yes, definitely. And rest of the patients, what we are seeing, the strokes, what we see daily is around 10 to 15% of total patients, including new strokes and the old strokes. And rest of the patients would be epilepsy patients, movement disorder, Parkinson's patient, dementia patients.
But the 10 to 50% is a very high number.
It's a big number, yes,
Extremely high
definitely,
number,
yes.
yeah. There was a study which was done by Mumbai Stroke Registry in 2005, where they have quoted the incidence of brain stroke is around 143 individuals from the 1 lakh population. That was 20 years ago. Have you recently come across any study, any demographic study which has been done in India, where they have quoted the number of incidents and things like that?
In young strokes?
Yeah.
I think there was a study was conducted amongst the neurological fear group only. where we had seen the number of patients, those who are getting admitted in the last 2 years. And we got to know that the incidence of young stroke is increasing by 10% as compared to the before, pre-COVID era and the COVID era, the post-COVID. So definitely, I think the number has gone up of
It's
late in
gone up
last 2-3 years.
significantly.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Now, study which had come from two states, one is from Punjab and second is from West Bengal. They're quoting the incidence of closely between 456 to 563 young people per lakh population. That's a very, very high number, very high. And it was a very authentic study, the retrospective study. So the number quoted there was very high. I mean, 400 and 500 patients per lakh population in Punjab and West Bengal. I mean, that is something which is a worrisome factor, I suppose. I mean, in 2005, in Mumbai, from 143, the number has jumped to 400 or 500. That's a pretty big jump. Very big jump, you know. And of those strokes, initially, what we were taught and what we knew, if you take the brain stroke, about 85% used to be ischemic stroke and 15% used to be hemorrhagic stroke, generally, roughly speaking. But what I see nowadays, the patients who are coming to our hospital, I think 25%, one-fourth of the patients are hemorrhagic cases. And so, number of hemorrhagic cases have increased, what I feel. And that goes hand in hand with the hypertension. You know, I mean, every second, third person is hypertensive. People who go for surgery, for any kind of surgery, when they go for a pre-anesthesia checkup, you know, they find 50% people have at least one risk factor. Either they have hypertension or there is a combination of hypertension and diabetes, or there is another thing, obesity comes to the picture. I mean, if hypertension is on rise, if diabetes is on rise, obviously your brain stroke also going to rise, right? So is too with the heart attacks.
Definitely.
Yeah. You know, there was a time that our country, all developing countries used to suffer with malnourishment, dehydration. I think that is a thing of the past now. You know, I mean, we are not seeing so much of, we're not actually hearing so much about it, you know. And all the resources still are directed towards buying tuberculosis, polio, malaria. They are not paying attention to this kind of non-communicable diseases like lifestyle diseases like diabetes, hypertension. Now, if that is true, are you seeing patients in your practice with tuberculosis, meningitis, rheumatic heart disease leading to brain stroke, or the number is almost zero?
It is not almost zero, sir. You're seeing a lot of patients in my practice. I see, like, in a month, I'm seeing 3-4 patients like this, secondary strokes, what we call. Secondary to brain infection. Either it is a bacterial meningitis, tuberculosis meningitis, which is causing strokes. Secondarily, it could be because of maybe what we can say, the rheumatic heart disease. So, incidence of RHD has definitely gone down.
Okay.
Maybe in last 1 decade.
Okay.
But we are still seeing the patient, those who are from the rural side or the outskirts area, they are coming to us with the RHD and one of the complications of rheumatic heart disease is stroke, cardioembolic stroke. So you are seeing such patients.
But is it because that you are catering to more rural population than the urban population? If that is so? Because here, I don't remember last when I had seen a patient with a brain stroke coming from rheumatic heart disease.
Definitely, maybe which area you are practicing, that also matters.
Yeah.
And from where the patient is getting referred to you.
Correct.
That also matters.
Because the Kharaghe is such an area, I think it is accessible to both urban as well as rural population. So we are not seeing that so often. When asked the rapid fire question that time, you said that women are affected as good as men. But what I feel, I think, do you think the number of strokes are increasing women more than men?
Yes.
Yeah. What could be the reason for that?
Not more than men, I can say. Maybe initially we used to see in the pre-menopausal time, means below the 50 years of the age of any female, the incidence of stroke was lesser as compared to the male gender.
Yeah.
Maybe once you are post-menopausal, the incidence almost gets equal. But nowadays we are seeing the incidence is almost as similar as what we see in the male gender. So there are a lot of reasons for that. Maybe in the younger generations we are seeing addictions a lot of stress, the hormonal irregularities, that use of contraceptives. So these are the factors which are leading rise to. At the same time, the lifestyle diseases are also there. I'm not saying the diabetes, blood pressure, they are they're not playing a part in the female. They are definitely there. I'm talking about female-oriented or the female-related risk factors.
Right.
So when it comes to a gender differentiation and the incidence of stroke in the females and the causes, definitely. So we come across a lot of patients coming to us, those who are on infertility treatment. After that, they're getting blood pressure issues. Or maybe they're on oral contraceptives. After that, they're getting venous strokes and the infarctions. Or the patients, those who are because of the faulty lifestyle or smoking, addictions, they're having issues related to the nervous system like strokes and the other complications. So maybe the risk factor might be different, but nowadays the incidence is definitely rising.
It's rising in the women, I'd say.
Yes.
There is a condition called as a hyperhomocystinemia. Right? Now, when that is associated with vitamin B12 deficiency, yeah, it can be one of the risk factors for the brain stroke. What is the mechanism behind this?
See, in hyperhomocystinemia, we always talk about two types. One is primary hyperhomocystinemia, secondary. Hyperhomocystinemia means your homocysteine in the blood, it is more. So, vitamin B12 is what we call vitamin B12 and homocysteine. They are inversely proportional to each other. Means for any individual whose vitamin B12 is low, the homocysteine is likely to be high because it is an indirect precursor in the pathway. If the homocysteine is on the higher side, vitamin B12 we consider that is on the lower side. And if that is so, more homocysteine in the body is more atherogenic or more thrombogenic. So the incidence of thrombus means clot formation is more in such individuals in whom the homocysteine is more. So we have to always treat vitamin B12 if that is the cause. Or there are certain families where the homocysteine is genetically more.
Right.
So what we call familial hyperhomocystinemia. So in such group of individuals, we have to treat them with the homine tablet or homocysteine tablets or vitamin B12. It is a combination of what we give. And we try to treat that so that in order to prevent the thrombotic complications. So thrombotic complication, not necessarily every time it will be in the brain. Sometimes they are at more risk for the heart attacks or maybe the kidney related issues.
Thrombosis anywhere
In the body.
Anywhere.
And if we treat it, since it is a reversible factor, we are treating it, it gets better and the risk is less.
Yeah. I had come across one publication some time ago that even if you treat hyperhomocystinemia or low vitamin B12, by giving medicine, your probably values might settle. Levels might come down, B12 might come back to normal. But the risk doesn't change. Is that true? Risk of forming the thrombus inside the blood vessel. I mean, once you treat the homocysteine levels, high hormone levels, you treat low vitamin D level, the values normalize. But the risk of getting a thrombotic events either in the coronary or the brain, I mean, this is the one which, because I don't have practical experience because we don't treat hyperhomocystinemia, being a neurosurgeon. But in your practice, have you come across this? I mean, you treated these patients, but still they went ahead and had strokes.
Maybe I can just use the different words for that. Maybe the risk would be definitely there in such group of, as we say now, once a stroke patient always will be the stroke patient. So once you have a stroke once in your life, you will be always at risk in spite being on medication. At the same time, the patient, those whose homocysteine is on the higher side, though we correct it, they'll be at the higher risk for getting thrombotic events later on also in their life. But we can minimize the risk by giving them the medication, at the same time keeping the regular follow-up of the patient. So at the doctor level, what we do, we are keeping regular health check, we are doing regular examination so that we can prevent the future complication. So I always tell this thing to all my stroke patients. Once you are better, it does not mean that you'll be better all throughout your life. Most of the patients initially when they are in the critical phase, they take everything meticulously. They will take their diet properly, then they will take your medicines properly. The moment they're better, they're working, they forget everything. So.
Right.
And they come to me 3 years, 4 years down the line telling that, Madam, again this hand is not moving. And it's been happening since 4 to 5 hours. So means definitely they're coming up to me with the second stroke or
Right.
maybe a recurrent stroke.
Right.
So understanding the importance of regular follow-up with the doctor, lifestyle changes,
Right.
exercises, taking medications locally, it is extremely important for any patient or any individual. So I would rather say any person who is more than 30 years of age,
Okay.
they should do their regular health checkup
Okay.
so that any disease risk factor it is there, we can modify that at the earlier stage
Right.
in order to prevent further
Right.
complications. in
Even if
form
they are
of
not
stroke.
symptomatic.
Even though they are not symptomatic.
Okay.
At least they should go ahead with regular health checkup, blood pressure monitoring, cholesterol monitoring, vitamin B12 testing. So that is extremely important.
That's
Otherwise,
important.
nowadays we think, I'm just 50, I should not be going to a doctor for any reason.
Right.
But if you're not going to the doctor, at least you should go and do the health checkup.
Health checkup. Now, that raises a very important point. So, when you screen such people, say after 50, you advise them to go for a very basic test. Does those tests include homocysteine levels, vitamin B12 levels?
After 30, I would say.
After 30?
And the health checkup, generally, nowadays we have seen in most of the hospitals, they offer certain health checkup. They have certain policies. They're giving certain health checkup tests. So in those tests, the commonly cardiac related risk factors, they are easily covering. Like they're doing lipid profile, they're doing HSCRP tests, they're doing something called as
Lipoprotein
ECG,
A also.
lipoprotein and 2D echo.
Right.
But neuro point of view, whatever tests are mandatory for any individual. Maybe, I don't know, the brain is always given maybe a second number. The heart always comes first.
Yeah.
But people fail to understand that if the brain is working properly, it will take care of all your organs.
Right.
So brain has to be given first number.
Right.
If I'm not saying that just because I'm a neurologist, maybe it is a high time for the people to understand that brain is extremely important. And brain only taking care of the rest of the organs.
Right.
So all healthcare policies, they have to maybe change, or they have to bring a shift in the test in form of they have to add certain neurological tests.
Yeah.
For example, carotid Doppler test.
Right.
That we should add after 60 years of the age.
Correct.
Along with that, I think if possible for the HSCRP, that is the marker for atherogenesis,
Yes.
homocysteine test, they should do it for all the patients those who are coming to you for a health checkup.
Right.
Most of the health packages, they are offering CT coronary angiography. If you can offer CT coronary angiography, you can definitely offer the CT brain angiography to any individual.
Yeah.
So I think that changes needs to be done. It will take time, but it will happen. I do so.
No, it's already happening. In fact, one of the USPs of Brainline project is to develop, not to develop, already we have developed a protocol which will screen the people for the brain health. And it includes this, what you said, like a Donnell test, like carotid angiography, homocysteine, B12, lipoprotein A. All those things are already started. So it's just a question of time before it becomes part of the health checkup. You know, that is definitely going to happen. This about CT angiogram that you told me about, I don't know whether we discussed this last time, but when I went to Japan first time in 1992, that time every fourth person in Japan is to a brain hemorrhage, yeah, because of aneurysm. The incidence of aneurysm was highest in that continent. And once you get the brain hemorrhage, then a lot of other complications come in. You know, patient admission, surgery, prolonged stay in IC, he's out of a job, then the family comes on the road. So government was spending billions of dollars treating such cases, you know. So what they started this kind of screening program in Japan. And they created red flags on people who might get aneurysm because it is so common. Every fourth person has an aneurysm. And they started doing, apart from the regular health checkup, also started doing CT angio, you know, in 1992. And whenever they found an aneurysm, unruptured aneurysm, before it ruptured, they started coiling it. And by doing that, their expenditure came down heavily. You know, because you are treating a person who has not yet created complications, who has not yet has bled. So, I mean, they prevented a lot of expenses. So, keeping that in mind, we have been thinking since a long time why brain is not included into the regular health checkup. You know, I mean, with this kind of rising incidence, I think we should be doing it as fast as possible. That was very nice. Now, there has been talk about regular exercises, yoga, and I heard people saying that if you do yogas and meditation exercise regularly, that can help to release stem cells from the bone, so which can help to regenerate the body. Not necessarily in patient with brain stroke. Suppose I'm going to the gym, yeah, I'm working on say isotomy exercises where I want to build up my muscle mass. So there is going to be some muscle injury. You are lifting heavy weight. But when I do yogas or when I do meditation or when I do exercising, that helps to release some stem cells from the bone. And those stem cells then later on body uses to regenerate your muscle damage happened during this thing. So this kind of philosophy is being applied regularly in case of brain stroke. So, have you heard of this?
Yes, yes.
You heard of it, and it's true. It is true. So, yoga, meditation, exercises definitely help for people to prevent brain stroke, heart attack. Yeah,
It should be done by every individual.
every individual.
Not after becoming. We are seeing a lot of patients after getting the first attack of stroke, then they realize importance of doing
Yeah.
yoga and exercises.
Yeah.
And the family member that time they realize, oh, exercise is extremely important. It is not like that. You have to start doing exercise right from the day one. Even
Day
if
one.
you are healthy, unhealthy, it doesn't matter.
That really does.
More you exercise, there are lesser chances of getting diseases.
Correct, correct, correct. Now, I want to hear something about neuroplasticity from you. What is neuroplasticity, and how does it help the brain recovery?
So, as I said, brain is the boss in your body. And why brain is different from the rest of the organs? Because in the brain, if the neuron is dying, it will never gonna regenerate later on. But still, the stroke patient they recur. So now one of my patient asked me that question, Madam, if the neurons are not generating, then why do the patient improve? What is the mechanism behind it? So I explained them in detail, same thing I'm telling you right now. There is something called as amazing mechanism which is going on in the brain that is called as neuroplasticity. So what do you mean by plasticity and the neuroplasticity? Means the brain has what you call synaptic channels from one neuron to another neuron. There are a lot of connections in between, and those are connections, they are around maybe a billion, trillion neurons are getting involved in that, and they're forming a networking. So this networking is extremely important for the brain to regenerate. So that when the nerve cells are not going to regenerate in such case situation, neuronal plasticity means the other part of the brain will take over that function. For example, the patient has got a stroke in the right side of the brain, and the right side of the particular part of the brain is not functioning. So what will happen? In the neuroplasticity process, more and more exercises you will do it, the opposite side, that is the left side of the brain, will give more channeling and the signal to the adjacent area of the right side, so that there will be a more synaptic connections. More and more synaptic connection help patient to improve from their ongoing problems like a paralysis, weakness, difficulty in speaking. So more you practice, more will be the synaptic correction, better will be the neuronal plasticity. So the plasticity comes into the neuro recovery. So recovery from anything, either it is from the stroke or it is from the injury or road traffic accident or any brain trauma. So the patient recover by this mechanism, and that is uniquely seen in the brain. It is not seen in any other organ in the body.
Excellent. Now, another hot topic which is being discussed all across the platform is the mental health. You know, what is it? What we've been discussing about broken hearts, we are talking about broken hearts. Why this kind of thing doesn't exist for the brain? Why we don't call it the broken brain? And why we call it the mental health problem? I mean, isn't it? Yeah.
Maybe I think if you want me to answer in the typical Bollywood style, our entire thought process goes behind the
Dil.
heart only.
Yeah.
So anything happens, everything is related to heart.
Yeah.
But if you think logically, or if you use little bit of intelligence behind it, maybe everything is coming from your brain, and the limbic system in the brain is responsible for all your emotions.
Right.
The heart is definitely not playing a role, but maybe somewhere philosophically or romantically that heart is coming into the picture, and we give extreme importance to the heart.
Yeah.
But the brain is playing a role, and the brain is playing the most important role in managing your mental health, your emotions, your control on your emotions, your behavior, your social networking, your understanding, and your appropriateness. So everything comes from the brain. Nowhere the heart is coming into the picture. So keeping mental health up to date is extremely important. Nowadays, because of lot of stress which is going on in the background, the work related stress, if you have to go to a workplace, you have to travel, the travel related stress, family stress, individual level stress, career related stress, academic goals, you want to achieve certain things, you're stressful because of that. Nowadays, a lot of children and adolescents are coming to us with the stress. They could not write the exams because of the family stress, so much of pressure, so much of competition which is going on in the background. So the stress factors may be different in the different age group. The stress factor for our children may be different. Maybe for adolescents it would be different. Middle age, older generation, again they have another stress factor. Family is already stressed. Means they have finished their familial goals. Now they are elderly. Nobody's there to look after. They have to stay alone. Health related issues, dependency, and again that morbidity which is coming into the picture. That they are not liking to stay alone. At the same time, they're dependent on the other family member. So the stress is playing extremely important role. How to come out of that stress is by having a good positive attitude towards life. Just most of the time maybe we say like just let it go, relax, don't think too much about what you want in your life and what you wanted in the future. Maybe just give importance to the presence and you just stay happy in your present tense. That's what he say. At the same time, the family and life is extremely important. Nowadays a lot of younger generations, they're staying alone, they're staying in the hostels, or they prefer to stay alone. Maybe for their age group they feel that might be okay, but the familial, maybe having a parents or maybe having in-laws with you definitely matters. They are like a extra support for you emotionally and the mentally.
Right.
For our children also, we have to give them enough space as a parent. So that stress factor somewhere, how to get rid of that by having a good familial atmosphere. So moment you enter to your home, you should be feeling relaxed. So whatever stressful life you have outside when you're traveling in the train or you're driving on the road, whatever stressful the day may be, moment you enter home, you should be feeling relaxed and heavenly. Like
Right.
you should not be walking out of your home like stressed.
Right.
So that's peaceful atmosphere has to be created. One thing, your peer group extremely important. It is not like that you are just studying, but you don't have good friends. Or maybe if you're having a bad friends and you are into a bad things, so that is also not good. So maybe taking life seriously, but not that much serious that you will be stressful, and choosing every person in your life with that comfort, that is extremely important.
Yeah.
And giving importance for what I can say, that self-respect, maybe loving yourself, that is extremely important. It is not like that you are getting loved by other and then you are appreciating yourself. It should not be like that. The self-respect and the self-esteem should come
Right.
from inside. And more career-oriented you are, it gets better. So definitely family is there to support you. You yourself is there to support yourself. Your peer group, definitely that matters. And in the long run, I think you should not be very much ambitious. You have to just let go. Slowly the things will happen. So once that stress comes under the control, rest of the things become easier. I
Easier to manage.
And it is very easier for an individual to manage. Otherwise, we are seeing a lot of younger generations, they are so much miserable, they don't know what is to be done in their life, or maybe they are misdirected in the wrong ways. Again, bringing them back to the normal track, that also becomes difficult.
Yeah.
And the neurological issues happens there only. So mental health is extremely important.
Yeah.
And it is related to your brain, and you should know how to channelize your brain in the right way. If you are channelizing it in the wrong way, the brain's limbic system is there to fire your entire life.
Correct.
So if you are going into alcoholism or if you are smoking, so the bad centers of the brain will gonna get activated.
Right.
So you don't want to get into it. You have to activate the good centers in the brain. And the brain will help you out in that.
Yes.
So mental health is extremely important. And channelizing your brain is extremely important at the individual level.
Right.
For that purpose, everyone should meditate at least for 10 minutes in a day. And they should do the exercises 20 minutes. So the channelizing of the brain becomes much easier for an individual.
You know, during those earlier times that most of the families used to stay together. There used to be at least 10 members in the family, or brother, uncle, their children. Was that a big support to avoid such mishaps? Or is it nuclear families nowadays? You know, just husband, wife, and actually child or children when they are staying together. Is that concern? Because I have seen, if those who are staying in a nuclear family, if something goes wrong with one person, the entire house is shaking. It collapses sometimes, which never used to happen when families used to stay together. Your parents, your in-laws, your uncle, big houses, big population, big numbers. So do you think that is one of the reasons that what we are seeing this problem in mental health? Because I get students from 8th and 9th standards, and the parents are telling me that my son was good in 7th standard. 8th standard, he hardly got some 85%. In 9th standard, he barely passed. What is wrong with my child? He doesn't remember the thing nowadays. And he suffers with the memory lapses very often. I remember my father, if somebody asked my father, which class we study, son is studying. He said, maybe 4th, maybe 3rd, maybe 5th. He did not even know where I am studying. He was only interested in knowing whether I pass or not. If I pass, whether I am first or second. That's the only interest that he had. And nowadays, what I'm seeing is this memory lapses, memory problems coming up in 8th and 9th standard student. It's a serious matter. And I have a feeling that even parents are responsible partially for that. So I think we are heading for something very disastrous. Now the last topic which I would like to cover with you in detail, but I want you to talk a little bit about this, about brain fog. Brain fog is another hot topic which is being discussed everywhere, which we will cover the next podcast in detail. But I want you to just introduce that particular term to the viewers.
Brain fog means difficulty in managing your focus or concentration. So nowadays we are seeing a lot of patients that are coming to us telling that I cannot concentrate. I'm getting difficulty in learning new things, difficulty in focusing on particular thing, difficulty in doing complex activity together. So we are calling that as mental fogging or a brain fogging. So means the brain is not clear about what brain has to do. There are a lot of reasons behind it why the younger generation is also coming to us, maybe because of a lot of gadgets use, inadequate sleep, and lack of exercise. The environmental factors are also there, like noise pollution or definitely the air pollution, the quality of the air, and the surrounding atmosphere if it is not in favor. So most of the time, the temperature, weather, that also matters. So these are the reasons by which any individual who's coming to us with those complaints. But when we investigate, evaluate, and we do the primary brain imaging, for example, if we have done it in the few patients, but the imaging comes normal, the MRI comes normal, maybe we can call that as a neurochemical imbalance. So the chemical imbalance which is going in the brain, which is giving rise to the brain fogging. And how to balance that chemical imbalance by reducing the stress factors, reducing the gadgets used, by good sleep, and taking less stress. It is very simple.
Yeah. Is it classical seen in young population?
Yes. Nowadays, a lot of patients are
Lots of
coming to this.
patients are seeing that. I would like to cover this brain fog just as a one single subject in next podcast. And Arti, I don't know how to thank you, but you really have spaced very well on young generation strokes. And I think this is a really matter of concern. So thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. I'm sure our viewers will enjoy this panel discussion. And I keep telling my viewers that if you like this podcast, just don't be shy to like it and subscribe it, because it will only help us to improve for the further one. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And see you again very soon.
Yes.